Hi, everyone, and welcome back to The Things We Know. I'm Lisa Callahan.
And I'm Kari Morin. And today we're gonna do
Oh,
it's so funny because we take turns kind of deciding how we're gonna do this. And I just looked at you blanked. Today we're flying without a net. I usually build a nice net for us, and I just wanted to riff on this one saying that I heard a long time ago that I've always loved, and my kids have also adopted, that I think is fun, and it would be fun to kind of see what comes of it in our discussion. And it is, I love saying it in a Southern accent because a very wise mentor.
I was going to say, is that how you heard it back when you were in
When
Nashville?
I was living in Nashville, living and working in Nashville, I had a very
Hmm.
wise, so I don't really want to say older, even though she's older, because she probably wouldn't like that, but she's lovely. Mentor to me in that job. And she would say in her best Southern accent, my grandma always said, you got to be smart to be lazy. And that always just tickled me because it's true, right? Like, if you want to figure out how to coast, if you want to figure out how to live more than work, you either got to have
Mm,
a super smart idea that that like pays off, or you got to like figure out how to, I don't even know if it means like do the bare minimum, but it could, it's so up to interpretation. You got to be smart enough to figure out how to relax more.
well, that's where I was going with it. I was thinking, like, you got to be smart to be lazy. Is it, to me, I hear time management. I hear knowing what is for you and what's not for you, and just the contrast, right? Because we normally use lazy as such a derogatory term about people, and yet in this instance it's sort of like it's the prize to be
Right.
lazy.
Yeah.
And I, for sure, that's a prize I'm always looking for.
Right. It's true. And I think what I'm realizing listening to you reflect that back is, I don't know that we've ever talked about this, but I think we have a little, because the word lazy is so loaded. It definitely
Totally.
is for me, with like a military father in our
Yep.
generation. Like, being lazy was just a really distasteful. You don't want to be lazy.
Yeah.
You didn't want to be growing up. I think it's true for our generation. You didn't want to be disappointing or lazy.
Oh, I think that's a total Gen X thing,
Yeah.
way for sure.
Yeah.
Yes. Yep.
Neither of those things. And lazy is disappointing. So there's a
Mm.
lot loaded with that word. And, wiser than me people in all of my personal growth have always said, like, I don't believe in lazy, or that's not really a thing. Like, people don't see the importance of downtime. They don't see the
You're right.
importance of, like, actually, like, all the things that need to happen, the integration, the learning, and the growth, and the healing, to just remember that you're a being and not a doer all the time, right? Like, that we're human
Right.
beings. And so I think in order to not be lazy, we've become these people that are constantly doing, and we're afraid to slow down, and we are afraid to, like, stop. And actually, so I like this, because even though it's a play on a word that's kind of loaded for people, if we can agree that it's just a funny word for, hey, to enable, in order to chill without any stress, be organized, or be smart, or plan ahead, or like, collaborate or get help, whatever it is, like, in order to be able to what's the word, toast,
Yeah. Yeah.
you have to get enough speed going to do that.
Well, that's perfect right there. Yes, you can't coast by just sitting there. You have to have some momentum to coast. But
Couch to
I think
coast.
couch to coast. I love that. We can design an app, couch to coast. But I just think you said something important around healing, right? Because we have often, I'll harken back to my days working at HCI, and when I was coaching students around building their business, we would talk about, we had a 90-day program that the students were taught. And then when you were talking about marketing it, you would say, we oftentimes the students would want to hear, well, then that means if it's this price for the entire 90 days, it must be this price per session. And I always had to remind them, it's not about the time of that your client is with you. It's the in-between time where all the magic happens. It's a 90-day program, not a 12-session program. It's a 90-day program because all the healing and the transformation happen in between the sessions. And so I think when you said the thing about healing, two things came to mind. One, the healing does happen in the quiet moments. And when you're scared to heal, you keep yourself busy. So this idea of like, I can't slow down. I can't slow down. What are you running from in terms of healing? And you might try to couch it as like, well, I don't want to be lazy, but actually it's like, if I slow down and actually like pay attention to myself and what I need, what does that mean then? Like what bubbles up to the surface? What Pandora's box am I opening?
That's true. Calling it lazy and then avoiding that feeling of being lazy really just allows you to avoid what you're not wanting to be present to.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what
Yeah.
jumped out at me when you said healing was that sense of if you don't slow down, and again, we talk about our human design all the time, but I think the funny thing about you got to be smart to be lazy for me as a manifester, again, one of the things as a manifester is we need downtime. We are to initiate, and then we step back, and projectors such as yourself say, okay, here's how we do this. Here's all the possibilities, and the man gens and the generators come in and do all the things. And it's, and we actually need rest. And so, when we were talking to Amy Douglas, I think she said this in the pod, she is a manifester who grew up with a lot of manifesting generators in her family. So they did look at her as being lazy. Of course, none of them had this language at the time, but now she sees how she grew up in this household full of man-gens, energizer bunnies, who thought of her as lazy, but as a manifester, she's supposed to have downtime. And then I think I have the opposite, like lovely experience of I am in a house full of manifestors, me, Darren, Liam. Charlotte's the only man-gen, and we look at her as like, oh my God, you're exhausting. You're always going. Because the three of us are just like, we're going to do a little something, and then we're just going to like sit back. And so it's important for me to have the downtime. And as an entrepreneur, I don't ever feel like I'm ever completely turned off because so much is happening in my brain, even when I'm sitting at the pool.
Right. That's so true. The one little bit of, kind of when I was curious about this topic that I did earlier this week was, I'm just looking for like, was she the first person that said that? Or is this like a saying, and I didn't really find it. So, good on her.
Might be her thing. Well, what's her name? Can we give her a shout out?
Yeah, her name is Sue.
Okay.
I don't think she listens, but anyway.
That's okay.
They're on CSNBC did a report on that science supports laziness, right? So this study that was done, the data found that those with a high IQ got bored less easily, leading them to be less active and spend more time engaged in thought. And I guess research even developed a fancy description for laziness. They called it need for cognition. Like people who have this trait crave structured and reasoned ways of looking at the world, and they often pursue activities that provide intense mental stimulation, such as brainstorming or debating, and need to rest more.
Interesting.
So interesting. But if you actually look at, like, if you were to Google anything about that, most things will say, psychology, like in kind of traditional psychology, laziness may reflect a lack of self-esteem, a lack of positive recognition by others, a lack of discipline stemming from low self-confidence, lack of interest in the activity or belief in its efficacy. Laziness may manifest as procrastination or vacillation, which made me think, I think sometimes what our parents' generation might have looked at and called laziness, and maybe the previous generations, and maybe ours too, is undiagnosed stuff, right? So there's like ADHD, people who might procrastinate, they might constantly either look lazy or frenetic, like they're not being smart about it. And then, or like there might be depression or something. But somebody who isn't suffering from those things or undiagnosed, who is at rest, might be like that might be the like internal intellectual stimulation that they need. So it's interesting. Like everybody probably has access to that if they have the tools they need.
Well, and none of those things you described sound like me. and yet I do. I mean, I have, when I left my job and became an entrepreneur solely, I had the opportunity to decide what my week was going to look like. And I learned a while ago that Mondays, ironically, are actually not a really good, from an astrology standpoint, Mondays are not a good work day for people. It's ironic that Monday is the first day of a work week. And I learned that several years ago from a mentor of mine, Alice Moore. Don't think she listens either, but I want to give her a shout out. And so I made a very conscious effort to say, I am not working on Mondays. I'm using that as a business building day. So I may go out to a lunch, like a networking lunch, which technically I guess is working, but it's enjoyable. Or I've got a bazillion books I want to read. And so I'm going to use those. Sometimes that might be at the pool. Sometimes it might be in my bed, but I am not going to coach. I'm not going to have a discovery call. I'm not going to do anything on Mondays. And then I've got Tuesdays and Wednesdays are my work days. Thursdays, we record the pod, which is not work at all. And then Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I'm off. And I am 100% okay with that. But most people could probably categorize that as not working enough. And I'm like, no, I'm good. I'm sweet.
That's awesome. I love that. No one would ever meet you and think you're lazy. I feel like the theme, one of the many recurring themes in this is how well you spend your time, which I think is another way of being smart.
Right.
I did see in Bustle magazine too, this was like from years ago, that there was some British research that was like, no worries if you feel like, these things mean you're lazy, they actually mean you're smart. And there was like 5, I think the article, I can't remember what it was called, something like science says laziness could be a sign of intelligence. So you can go take a nap. It's the name of the article.
I love that.
The 5 things that kind of were common that people would sometimes go, oh, she's being lazy, were actually, the opposite, which is you don't always want to socialize, right? The report, according to the Washington Post, I guess that they were that we're drawing from, posited that in general, the more social interactions with close friends a person has, the greater their self-reported happiness, except for more intelligent individuals who were less satisfied with life if they socialized too much. Skipping after work drinks for another night is just the way they replenish. And so I don't know, that to me was kind of interesting. So I'm like, that just sounds like introvert extrovert, but anyway. Another one is like, you'd rather chill with your cat than walk a dog. Cat lovers scored higher on intelligence than dog lovers. I don't appreciate that.
I think you disagree.
Does it make sense that a dog person is going to be more lively because they're going to want to be out there outside talking to people? I don't know, because I do know some
this still feels like introvert extrovert though.
Yep. Whereas if you're more introverted and sensitive, maybe you're more at home reading a book. This feels like such stereotypical stuff. A third one in that article said, you leave everything until the last minute. People with strong perfectionistic tendencies who want to make sure their work is completely correct may complete their tasks on time, but stall as long as possible before they turn them in to be evaluated. It's not that you don't care, it's that you're so committed to doing it at an extremely high standard, you begin to worry you don't achieve it and delay the task. So I don't know about that.
I do wait till the last minute, but I don't, it's not perfectionist tendencies. It's just, and I think we've talked about this before too, like, it's just my work style is to wait till last minute. Most of the time it works for me. Sometimes it doesn't, then okay, but yeah.
This one I think I do agree with. You live in messy chaos, because the messiest person in my house is Peter, and he is, kind of
brilliant
charts.
So for sure. That makes total sense.
It's like linked to creativity and intelligence. Disorderly environments seem to inspire breaking free of tradition, which can produce fresh insights.
Can I ask you a question though about that? Because so Liam, he hasn't lived with us for years, but I remember when he did live with us, he was very messy, but before he would sit down to work on a project, not necessarily homework, but his own art, he would clean up his room. And Darren is the same way. Darren's not messy by any stretch of the imagination, but he definitely like puts things away before he's going to sit down and write or create music or whatever. So does Peter do that? Does he have a moment of like clearing the clutter? Okay, I can see from your face, for those of you who are not watching YouTube, that the answer is no.
I mean, if he were to listen to this, he might go, you don't know, I do that now.
Uh,
Like I've seen that so rarely. It's like, I feel like I'm gonna pop
hmm.
an eyeball trying to remember it, but I'm that way. I can relate to Liam. Like I don't know that I'm not the neatest person. I think I had a roommate in college who thought I was, just because I had to, like kind of balance out, where we were at. So if she was
Right.
messy, I would clean, and probably vice versa. But I'm not the neatest person, but I do like things. I like kitchens and bathrooms orderly, and I'm
Hmm.
happiest when my house is clean. But if the kitchen's really messy and I'm gonna cook a big meal, I like to clean it first. I like it to,
Okay.
like I need to start to totally like just clear counters,
Yeah.
everything, nice,
Makes
clean, all
sense.
that. But, Peter, no, that's cool that Liam does that. I like that.
Well, I just think it's that sense of, yeah, I don't know what it is, but
Maybe
it's
because he's an artist, like blank canvas, kind of. I don't know.
probably, I mean, I feel like that's Darren's thing too. We just had this conversation a couple weeks ago where it was like he told me what he's going to do for the day, but I saw him doing everything else. And I was like, are you really? And it wasn't a thing that mattered to me. So I wasn't being critical. I was just like, wait, I thought you were going to do this today. It's like, oh, I am, but I want to clear up all this stuff before I do. And I was like, oh, okay. Yeah. And he reminded me that that's kind of his way. It's like, okay, if I've got bills that I have to file, or I've got all these little random things that are sitting around the desk, I can't write or I can't create music if I've got all these bits and pieces. And the funny thing is, like, I always tease my clients when they talk about organization. I'm like, from here my room looks very clean, but if I was to turn my computer around and you'd see what was in front of the computer, it's organized chaos for sure. And every once in a while I do go through and sort of straighten, but yeah.
I've been to your place. It's pretty neat. I often have done that too. Like I'll turn my camera towards like all the piles of laundry that
Yeah.
sitting there. But
Yeah.
yeah.
That's
Yeah,
how old is that article though? Because that is fascinating. I feel like it's outdated.
it's
Can you tell?
2018.
Oh, it's not that old. It's
I
only
know, it's
five
weird.
years.
It feels a little like someone phoned it in.
They were lazy.
I That's kind of smart. Get it published.
And we just read
Um,
it on the pod.
I know. I feel like I feel like podcasting is a great way of like demonstrating this. Like, I
Mm.
don't have to leave my house. I really
Mm.
could be, in pajamas from the waist down. I am not. But like you really can create something that, that you're really proud of without going to too much effort, right? If you're doing it smart, like, you're doing it with someone you want to work with, and you've got
Yeah.
like, like I think that we're learning as we get older how to work smarter so that you can have more free time. Isn't that the goal? Like
I,
how to use our time well, where we get the most bang like for our time, right? For like this is a great way for us to do what we do.
I agree. It's funny because I think about how many of my clients self-identify as being lazy. And as their coach, I can 100% unpack that, and they realize they are not. But it is fascinating to me how many people, I wonder what, because I don't identify that way. I identify as someone who loves a lot of downtime, but I've never thought of myself as lazy, even though we've joked about being lazy entrepreneurs. I don't really think of myself that way. So I wonder what makes people think they are lazy.
I mean,
What's telling them
I
they're
can
lazy?
speak for that because, we talked recently a couple times about how I can work in intense amount of hours. And then if I like follow right up to that and do just nothing,
Right.
that I might go, wow, I was so productive this morning. I was lazy all afternoon. I can do that. There's like an old programmed part of me that can just
You go right
immediately,
there, huh?
not always, but
Okay.
I can. I
Okay.
can. That's like a place I might go when I'm kind of in a tired, less resourced place. I might go
Ah,
to like, oh, I was kind of lazy today. What? I'm already very quick to catch that and be like,
yeah,
no,
yeah.
you were like taking some downtime. You were taking some much needed rest. You decided to stop being in motion and you needed to be still, and don't judge how you did that. Right. So like there's that conversation that has to happen when I'm in that place. That happens less, but I can relate to people feeling that way because they have these great expectations of themselves, or they have these ideals, or they have these goals. And instead of getting curious and saying like, oh, what did I need instead today? They go straight to that was lazy. I was lazy and I've been too lazy. I haven't done anything. Like I met with someone today and she's like, I've just been lazy. And then we talked about everything she's actually been doing instead of the thing she thought she should be doing. And we're like,
well, is that it
anything
then?
but lazy.
Right? Is
Yeah.
that it? If you aren't hitting the thing if you're shoulding yourself, right? And I should
Right.
be doing this, you are discounting all the things you are doing. I just said I don't think of myself as lazy, and yet you and I were we're in a mastermind together, and we had a special guest come in and do some, I don't even know what I would call that, but what I'm talking about, with Patrick, and he did some
Oh yeah.
meditation-y type
Yeah.
things. Yeah, I guess, for lack of a better word. And the thing that bubbled up for me is being lazy. And he knows me itty bitty. And he was like, I don't think anybody would ever think you were lazy. And I'm like, but that's not about what other people think. Like, in the moment, I had this aha of like, I do think of myself as lazy, and I was trying, and yet I don't. And so I was trying to cycle it back. And it came to when I decided to leave my work and become a stay-at-home mom, which I was technically only a stay-at-home mom exclusively for about 18 months. But there was some programming in my head that I was still holding on to 21 years later, of why can't I do both? Why can't I work and also be at home? But the reason I decided to leave my job was I wanted to be home with Liam and not miss any of his moments. And we all well know that a stay-at-home mom is the CEO of the house. So I mean, I was probably doing more than if I had worked and also been at home,
Totally.
because I felt the need to be the person that did all
Yes.
the things.
Moms are anything but lazy.
Again,
Yeah.
agreed. But somehow Darren didn't put that on me. I had put it on me.
No, I do think it's a self-imposed, shame thing. It's an interesting, it's an interesting thing. And I mean, I can catch myself judging the behavior of, usually my kids are something like, you couldn't get that done. Well, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
So I think I have to like scrub that from my mind. Not like, of course I can say, hey, I need you to do this next time when I ask. And like, that could be a different thing without it being a judgment around, like a character judgment around laziness. But I feel like it all falls in the same category. There's these standards, there's these expectations, these shoulds that, that really like kind of come through. And if you don't pay attention to it, you're going to be in that place of, I mean, it's funny that you were identifying as lazy. I was more thinking my behavior or like how I spent my time was lazy. I don't know if I've ever felt like I was lazy, but like I've judged my choices for being lazy or something.
I mean, I guess that's ultimately what I was doing.
Yeah.
But yeah, again, it was an unknown thing. That's why it was such a like, okay, that's what came up for me, was that I somehow identified myself as lazy because I didn't decide to both work and be a mom. And, obviously we all know the stories around stay-at-home moms versus working moms and how society tries to pit us against each other. But somehow I took on that mantra unknowingly in my head, because it didn't show up for me 21 years later. But that was definitely the story I had buried deep in my brain.
I was just thinking too, it's not the song we chose, but like, I like the use of lazy, like lazy summer days, like lazy daisy. I like that because I think that kind of circles back to like how I like to hear this phrase, this phrase, you got to be smart to be lazy. Like, I like the goal being like getting to chill.
It's the prize.
And it does imply a little like you have to earn it. And that like could loop me back into like, I didn't earn this downtime. So like I have to like back up from it and be like, no, you if you want to enjoy that time, just like be smart enough to know you deserve it.
Ooh, there you go. I love that. So it's not about being smart to be lazy. It's about being smart and realizing you earned you deserve to be lazy. We all do. We
that you
all
don't have
deserve
to earn it.
downtime.
You don't have
Yeah.
to earn it. Yeah.
Yeah, we all deserve downtime. And, as we are literally moving in, I mean, this is coming out in the midst of what can be the busiest time of the year, if we allow it to be. And it should be downtime. I really, in the last, I guess this will probably be my third holiday season where I have actually taken the entire week between Christmas and New Year's off. I don't have any clients. It is something I absolutely love, because it is that moment to just enjoy the season and gear up for the new year, which is always fun and rejuvenating in and of itself. And one could, I guess a different version of me would have been like, I should be working. I should be doing something. I should be doing something. I think that's a younger version. That maybe some of this comes along with no fucks left to give. Was your friend, I mean, you said she was older.
No,
you were young at the time.
She's probably in her late 30s, early 40s at the time. She's kind of
she
like
was starting to get to that place of giving less fucks. So, I love it. Yeah, this was your topic you wanted to bring to the forefront.
It's true. So our song that we came up with by Desiree, I had forgotten all about this song.
Me too.
I thought we were gonna have a lot of trouble finding a song, and this came to us pretty quickly, which was "You Gotta Be." And I like these words: herald what your mother said, read the books your father read, try to solve the puzzles in your own sweet time. Some may have more cash than you, others take different view. My oh my. Hey, hey, hey. And then it's like, you got to be bad, you got to be bold, you got to be wiser, you got to be hard, you got to be tough, you got to be stronger, you got to be cool, you got to be calm, you got to stay together. All I know, love will save the day.
That's good. I love when we come across a song and we didn't even think about it, and it's just exactly right.
I know.
So good.
It's
so good. Oh, well, how would you like to end this one, Kari? Since we're off script.
I know. I would just say, like, hopefully, like, the smart takeaway here, especially this time of year, is chill. Relax. Do less. And if you let yourself do less, don't make yourself pay for it. Before or later. See if you can do it without having to cash in or cash out. Yeah.
Allow the laziness to flow and know that it is exactly right. You said it earlier, but we are not human doings. We are human beings.
Yes.
And sometimes the most brilliant ideas, the most brilliant next steps come from those quiet moments, the healing, all the things we talked about at the beginning, and allowing.
Yes.
So
and I
good.
think for my part, I want to dedicate this to my oldest, who has perfected the like gotta be smart to be lazy. And I mean that with such great compliment. He embodies this.
I love it. I mean, that kid is off the charts smart.
Yes. And he's off the charts into relaxing and having fun.
He does. I mean, he has
having
lived.
Funner.
Yeah, having funner. I love that. That's awesome.
I know.
Well, gosh, we're getting so close to the end of the year and the end of our first season. I can't even believe it.
I know.
But as usual, we want to thank everyone for listening. And if this feels like you were listening to this and you thought, oh my God, so-and-so should hear this, please share it. Follow us on our both Instagram and our Facebook pages. We'll throw all the calls to action in. And if you're listening on Apple, go over and give us a review. Or if you're on Spotify, hit those 5 stars. That would be awesome.
Thank you.
All right, everyone. Thank you. We'll be back next week with more things we know.
So long.